Today, we are diving into one of the most influential architectural books of the late 20th century, Delirious, New York, by Koolhaas. Published in 1917A, this book is not a conventional history, and it's not exactly a theory either. It's something like Stranger. Koolhaas calls it a retroactive manifesto. Instead of proposing new architectural ideology, he argues that Manhattan has already built one unconsciously. According to Koolhaas, Manhattan is not a chaotic. It is not irrational. It is not accidental. It is the result of a hidden, consistent urban ideology. He named this ideology Manhattanism. At the time of writing, Koolhaas was a young architect who would later found OMA. But when Delirious, New York was published, he was still constructing his intellectual foundation, and this book became fundamental, not just for him, but for contemporary architecture as a whole. Koolhaas has described the book with a strange phrase. Normally, manifesto appears before a movement. It declares principles and proposes a new direction. But in this case, the movement already existed. The buildings were already standing. The skyline was already formed. The island of Manhattan had already become one of the most extraordinarily urban environments in human history. So instead of proposing a theory, Koolhaas attempted something different. He tried to decode a hidden logic that had already produced Manhattan. Why did Manhattan become the birthplace of the skyscraper? Why did its architecture embrace extreme density and radical pragmatic combinations? Why did the city seem almost surreal in its mixture of a spectacle, commerce, and technology? Koolhaas argues that Manhattan operates according to unique urban ideology. Manhattan is not a design style, it is a cultural condition, not cerebral cognition, technological ambition, and a coexistence of multiple realities within a space. To understand Manhattan, Koolhaas traces the history of the island through the series of episode moments when architecture, technology, economics, and imagination combine to produce new forms of urban life. The first key moment occurs in 1811, with the commissions of plans of 1811. This plan imposed a famous grid across Manhattan. Hundreds of streets and avenues divided the island into regular rectangular blocks. At the time, the grid was primarily a real estate instrument. It allowed land to be subdivided quickly and sold efficiently. But Koolhaas argues that the grid produced something far more radical. The grid separated urban form from the urban meaning. Traditional cities evolved gradually around monuments, churches, and civic centers. Manhattan's grid erased these hierarchies. Every block became equal. Every block became a blank stage. Because each block was independent, it could develop its own identity. Developers, architects, and entrepreneurs were free to experiment. In this sense, Manhattan became a framework for unlimited urban speculation. So before skyscraper appeared, Manhattan was already becoming a place of intense transformation. During the 19th century, waves of immigration flooded the city. Industrialization accelerated. The population exploded. The island quickly filled with housing, factories, and commerce. At the same time, technological innovations were reshaping the city. Elevated railways, steel construction, electric lighting. These technologies allowed the city to expand both horizontally and vertically. The stage was set for the next great transformation. But before Manhattan became the capital of skyscrapers, the cultural imagination of the city was shaped somewhere else. The place was Coney Island. At the end of the 19th century, Coney Island became the most spectacular entertainment district in the world. Millions of visitors traveled these each year to experience a new kind of environment, the mechanized dream world. Three giant amusement parks dominate in the landscape: Dreamland, Luna Park, Steeplechase Park. These parks were unlike anything that had existed before. They were artificial universes. visitors could ride mechanical horses, explore miniature cities, or witness simulated disasters. Electric lights illuminated elaborate fantasy architecture. Entire environments were constructed purely for amusement. Koolhaas argues that Coney Island pioneered a radical culture idea. Architecture could manufacture experiences. Reality could be redesigned. This idea would later migrate into Manhattan skyscrapers. Instead of building single-purpose structures, architects would create buildings capable of hosting multiple artificial environments stacked vertically. So by the late 19th century, several technological breakthroughs made a skyscraper possible. First, steel frame construction replaced the heavy masonry walls. Second, the elevator allowed people to move efficiently between floors. Third, electric lighting illuminated the interior spaces far from the windows. These innovations made vertical architecture practical, but Koolhaas insists that technology alone didn't produce the skyscraper. The true driver was economics. Manhattan is an island with limited land. As population and economic activity increased, land values skyrocketed. Developers realized the only way to increase profit was to build upward. The skyscraper transformed the economics of land. One plot could now contain dozens of floors of rentable space. This changed the relationship between architecture and real estate. Buildings were no longer static structures. They became machines for maximizing urban density. One of Koolhaas's most important idea is that skyscrapers function as social condensers. Instead of separating activities across the cities, skyscrapers stacked them vertically. Offices might occupy the lower floors, restaurants and clubs might appear above, hotels and apartments might occupy the top. This vertical stacking creates new kinds of urban interactions. Different social worlds coexist within the same structure. One of the Koolhaas' favorite example is the Downtown Athletic Club, completed in 1931. This building combined athletic facilities, dining rooms, lounges, and sleeping quarters within a single skyscraper. Each floor represents a different environment. Koolhaas famously imagined a surreal scene. A businessman swims naked in a pool on the floor, then ascends to the dining room above to eat oysters and drink champagne. The building becomes vertical cities of simultaneous experiences. As skyscrapers, multiple developers competed not only for profit but also for attention. The skyline itself became a battlefield for architectural spectacle. Two buildings in particular symbolize this era: Chrysler Building and Empire State Building. Both were built during the late 1920s and early 1930s. The race of height between competing developers pushed engineering and architecture to new extremes. Skyscrapers became symbols of ambition, wealth, and technological power. They also became icons of a modern metropolis. Perhaps the most sophisticated expression of Manhattanism is Rockefeller Center. Completed in 1930s, Rockefeller Center created a complex network of buildings, plazas, shops, and entertainment spaces. It integrated multiple layers of urban activity: workplaces, public space, retail, media production. Rather than isolating functions, Rockefeller Centers connected them. Pedestrian passages, underground corridors, and plazas created a dense network of a movement. For Koolhaas, Rockefeller Center represents a perfect synthesis of architecture, capitalism, and urban spectacle. So Koolhaas also drew the parallel between Manhattan and the artistic movement of Surrealism. Surrealism explored the unexpected juxtaposition and dreamlike combinations. Manhattan achieved similar effects through the architecture. A subway station may exist beneath the theater. A hotel may sit above the shopping mall. A nightclub may operate inside a skyscraper. These collisions of different worlds create a city that constantly surprises its inhabitants. When Delirious New York was first published in 1978, its reception was far from universally enthusiastic. Today, the book is considered a classic of architecture theory, but this reputation develops very slowly. In the late 1970s, the dominant intellectual climate in architecture was still strongly influenced by modernist orthodoxy and emerging postmodern debates. Many architects expected theory books to follow a familiar format: historical analysis, technical argument, or stylistic manifesto. But Koolhaas offered something completely different. Their books mixed history, fiction, architecture drawings, slender storytelling, and speculative interpretation. Rather than presenting a strict historical scholarship, Koolhaas described Manhattan almost like a mythological landscape. For example, he described the buildings as if they were characters in a story and treated urban development as a sequence of dramatic episodes. Because of this unusual method, many early readers didn't know how to classify the book. Some critics felt it was too playful or too literary for serious architectural theory. Others were skeptical of Koolhaas' admiration of Manhattan's chaotic urbanism. At the time, many planners still believed cities should aim for order, rational planning, and functional circulation. But Koolhaas seemed to celebrate the opposite: congestion, spectacle, density, and contradiction. This attitude felt provocative. In fact, some readers interpreted the book as ironic critique rather than a genuine celebration of Manhattan. Another reason the book initially received limited attention was that Koolhaas himself was not yet widely known as an architect. At the time, he hadn't yet completed many major buildings. His firm, OMA, had only recently been founded. As Koolhaas' career grew during the 1980s and 1990s, interest in the book increased dramatically. By the 1990s, Delirious New York had become required reading in many architecture schools. Architecture began to recognize that Koolhaas had captured something essential about modern cities. Urban life is not orderly. It is intense, layered, and contradictory. Today, the book is widely considered one of the most influential works of architectural theory of the late 20th century. Many readers notice something immediately when they open Delirious New York. It doesn't read like a conventional narrative. Instead, the book is composed of episodes. Each chapter focuses on a particular building, event, or moment in Manhattan's history. These episodes are not strictly chronological. They function more like case studies. Koolhaas uses each story to reveal one aspect of Manhattanism. Because of this structure, the book can feel somewhat encyclopedic. It contains drawings, historical anecdotes, speculative interpretations, and conceptual diagrams. Many readers initially try to read the book from beginning to end like a traditional history, but the approach can sometimes feel overwhelming. Instead, the book works better if we think of it as something closer to a reference text. A useful way to approach Delirious New York is to treat it almost like a conceptual atlas. Each chapter reveals a different aspect of Manhattan's urban logic. You do not necessarily need to absorb everything at once. Many architects return to particular chapters repeatedly because each one contains a dense set of ideas. In this sense, the book behaves less like a novel and more like a philosophical toolkit. Some readers even compare it to a Bible or a metropolitan culture, not because it provides a fixed rules, but because it contains a collection of narratives that explain how a particular urban ideology emerged. For example, if you want to understand the cultural origins of Manhattanism, you can read the chapters about Coney Island. If you want to understand the spatial logic of skyscrapers, you might focus on the chapter about a downtown athletic club. If you want to see how large-scale urban projects integrate multiple functions, the chapter about the Rockefeller Center is especially important. Each chapter acts almost like a standalone essay. Together, they gradually build a larger concept of Manhattanism. So in architectural schools, Delirious New York is rarely lead in a single continuous sitting. Instead, students often revisit each repeatedly during their studies. They may return to particular passages when thinking about density, programmatic complexity, skyscraper typologies, and urban spectacle. Because the book is rich in ideas, each reading can reveal new insights. What initially appears to be playful storytelling gradually reveals a deeper theoretical framework. This is why many architects keep the book on their shelves for years, not as something to finish once and to forget, but as something to revisit whenever they think about cities. So part of the enduring appeal of Delirious New York is that it doesn't simply describe architecture, it changes how we think about cities. Instead of seeing urban chaos as a problem to be solved, Koolhaas suggests that chaos can be productive. Density can generate creativity. Contradictions can produce new forms for architecture. This idea influenced an entire generation of architects and urban thinkers. It also shaped the later work of Koolhaas himself, whose project often explored extreme combination of programs, scale, and urban context. So in the end, Delirious New York argues that Manhattan is not just a place, it is a theory of urban life. The city demonstrates that density, technology, and imagination can produce entirely new forms of architecture. Rather than feeling congestion, Manhattan transforms it into the creativity. Rather than separating the functions, it celebrates their collision. And rather than the presuming order, it embraces the chaos of a modern life. For Koolhaas, Manhattan represents the ultimate experiment in urbanism, a place where architecture becomes a machine for producing experiences,